Well, hello and welcome to Stand Up. It is President's Day. I gave Pete Coe the day off from the intro, but I do think we have a news dump jingle coming for you. I hope you had a great weekend. There is, of course, a lot to talk about in the news. I got the news coming up, but then two great guests. I couldn't get together with Maher Quint, unfortunately, yesterday. I might still hopefully talk to her at some point this week because I hate to miss a conversation with her, but I have awesome conversations with both Dr. Arthur Caplan, bioethicist, and CNN's S.E. Cupp, and her latest daily news stuff. We are always talking about mental health and much, much more. Great conversations with Dr. Caplan, with S.E. Cupp, and I'm very happy to have you. Hello, my friend. How are you? Are you good? Are you thriving? Are you struggling? Are you taking it one day at a time? How's it going? I hope you are hanging in, and I always love to hear from you. And don't forget to send me your vitamin N. Very short on nature pictures. Spring is just around the corner. You can feel it. So get out there, take photos of nature with no man-made products, and email them to me. If you listen to the show, go do that, and then I include them in the subscriber email. And if you're not a subscriber, what are you waiting for? Sign up now, standupwithpete.com. So it's President's Day, and that means the U.S. Post Office won't deliver mail. Government agencies are closed. Most kids get the day off from school. My daughters are off all this week. Restaurants and retailers will mostly be open, but it's the third Monday of February and a federal holiday commemorating the nation's 45 commanders-in-chief. The observance usually falls on or around George Washington's February 22nd birthday, and a holiday still officially known as Washington's birthday. I've talked about it with historian Ken Davis in the past. I had a good weekend. We did the first episode of season 9 of Last Week Tonight on HBO, where they discussed CRT. Really great episode. I didn't get to see much of it in the taping because I had to run out of there and get home for dinner with the family, but I did hear about it and heard good things, and it's too late, airs too late for me to include on the Monday show, but very excited. I'm very excited to be a part of that award-winning show, the smartest, funniest TV show on TV, potentially, arguably, and I get to do the audience warm-up now it'll be Saturday. I did it this week on Sunday, but every Saturday there'll be a taping. So if you're in New York and you ever want to go to a taping, no ticket guarantees, but for listeners like you, I'll try to make it happen. Just because you're such a good person. All right, time for the news. Time for the last 24. All right, well, let's get to some news stories, shall we? I got a little bit of sound for you on Russia-Ukraine stuff, a whole bunch of headlines, and two great interviews on today's episode of Stand Up. But the Olympics are over. Did you care? Did you watch? Were you paying attention? We didn't even know they happened in my family. Queen Elizabeth has tested positive for COVID-19. She's 95 years old. She's apparently only experiencing mild, cold symptoms, but the rumor is she might have gotten the virus from her eldest son and heir, Prince Charles. He gave it to her. He tested positive earlier in the month. The Queen, of course, completely vaccinated, and February 6th will mark 70 years on the throne. But did Chuck go in there and get her sick? Is that what happened? Is he rot the throne that badly himself? He went in and he's like, hello, mother. Crazy. And speaking of crazy, over the weekend, we learned that Jeffrey Epstein's former associate, a former French modeling agent named Jean-Luc Brunel, was found dead in his Paris cell during the night. Spokesman for the city's prosecutor said Saturday he was 75 years old. He'd been charged himself with raping minors over the age of 15, which is France's age of consent for some weird, awful reason. And he was also charged with sexual harassment. He was also suspected of procuring young women for Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring. So if this story couldn't get more conspiratorial, more crazy, and more upsetting, the prosecutor said he was found hanging and his death was appeared to be a suicide. But somehow the cameras got turned off the same way they did for Epstein in that Manhattan prison. No cameras recorded his death. New York Times, the Miami Herald, and everybody else reporting on that. So that's a crazy story that everybody's going to run away with. And finally, the Freedom Convoy. News in Canada and Ottawa. Canadian police took aggressive action finally over the weekend to break up the Freedom Convoy protests that have occupied downtown Ottawa, the nation's capital, for 3 weeks. They arrested at least 170 people Friday and Saturday, towed more than 50 vehicles, used batons and chemical irritant against protesters who they described as, quote, aggressive and assaultive, which I guess is a word they use in Canada for violent people, assaultive. Anyway, they were accused of attempting to use children to shield themselves from police, and videos showed demonstrators being trampled by police horses. One protester reportedly threw a bicycle at a police horse. I mean, only in Canada that they have cops on horses and they're throwing bikes at them. Another was arrested after allegedly launching a gas canister. So it got pretty crazy over the weekend in Ottawa, but seems to have calmed down a little bit. What's next? So much more to talk about in the news dump, but let's get to the story that is probably the most important in the world right now, unfolding what is happening in Ukraine and Russia. President Biden late Sunday, quote, agreed in principle to meet the Russian leader if there's no invasion. President Biden stepped up his warnings about Moscow's plans after seeing evidence, according to him, that there was an attack on Ukraine was imminent, but there are questions about what is happening right now. The strategy here, the Biden administration saying that they know that the Russians are going to invade as a way to try to prevent them from invading. It gets a little complicated. A lot of different points of view I've got to share with you. Most predictions are fairly dire, I think, from everything that I've seen, that it still looks like it's a go and Russia is going to invade. And I think we'll know a lot more. This week is the crucial week, apparently, because if the two foreign ministers of Russia and the U.S. meet, Secretary of State Blinken, Foreign Minister Lavrov, if they meet, that's good. If they don't meet, real bad. That's the quickest way to say it. But here is the president on Friday making his play. This is a clear strategy from the United States in a last-ditch attempt to prevent Russia from actually invading, saying that they know they are going to invade.
Do you have any indication about whether President Putin has made a decision on whether to invade? Do you feel confident that he hasn't made that decision already?
As of this moment, I'm convinced he's made the decision. We have reason to believe.
So there it is. We have reason to believe it. A couple more questions, and then a reporter comes back, another reporter, to confirm what they heard, because it's such a big deal what he said. Here's that.
Mr. President, to be clear, you are convinced that President Putin is going to invade Ukraine. Is that what you just said a few moments ago?
Yes, I did. Yes.
So is diplomacy off the table then?
No. Until he does, diplomacy is always a possibility.
What reason do you have to believe he's considering that option at all?
We have a significant intelligence capability. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next I've got for you the reaction from Russia. This is the Russian ambassador to the U.S. His name is Anatoly Antonov. That's his actual real name. That's what his parents named him. And here he is trying to obfuscate with CBS's Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation yesterday.
I'll get right to it. President Biden says that President Putin has decided to invade Ukraine. Is he correct?
There is no innovation and there is no such plans. It was fixed in Russian documents that we conveyed to our American friends in the State Department. Russia has publicly declared its readiness to continue the diplomatic efforts to resolve all outstanding issues. Russian troops are on a sovereign Russian territory. We don't threaten anyone.
Respectfully, Ambassador, you have troops in Belarus, which is not technically Russian territory. You have troops in Moldova. You have separatists you are funding and supporting in the east of Ukraine. This is not your territory.
Yes. When we are talking about Belarus, I hope that there will be an opportunity for us to discuss it. We will discuss joint drills that are undergoing.
They were supposed to end today. Are those troops staying in Belarus indefinitely?
You see that as to United States, you have so many military bases in various countries. As to us, we have just only a few. And we can't see any contradiction to any.
All right, well, that's enough from the Russian ambassador to the U.S., Anthony Antonov. Is that his name? So now let's go to the Secretary of State of the U.S. It's Anthony Blinken. He's on Meet the Press with Chuck Todd. He was also on CNN as well, I think. But here he is yesterday.
Has the invasion already begun?
Well, it certainly looks like everything we said was likely to occur in the lead up to the actual invasion is happening. We're seeing false flag operations taking place in eastern Ukraine, the manufacturing of provocations and justifications for Russia to go in. We just heard this morning that exercises that, and I put that in quotation marks, that Russia was engaged in Belarus with 30,000 Russian forces that were supposed to end are now not ending because of the alleged tension in eastern Ukraine. That, of course, is being created by Russia and its proxies there. So all of this seems to be following the script that I laid out at the United Nations Security Council and that President Biden talked about to the nation just the other day.
All right. The question is a response from Ukraine. They're stuck in between. What can they do? They have no options whatsoever. All of the talk of imminent invasion is crushing their economy and creating massive concerns in their country. This is really between Europe and the U.S. and Russia at this point. Here's more from Meet the Press with Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The billion-trillion-dollar question? I don't know.
Why do you think Putin appears to not be taking these threats seriously?
Well, one of the challenges that we have, Chuck, I think, is that we all put our own frame of logic on what President Putin is doing that may not be the same frame that he has. And it's hard to put yourself in someone else's mind, but he has decades of built-up grievances. He has, I think, a conviction that Ukraine cannot in any way be Western-oriented, that it cannot be a successful democracy on his borders. And that fundamentally is what this is about. He wants to reconstitute, if not the Soviet Empire, at least a sphere of influence. And if not that, at least to Finlandize his neighbors. So our logic is very different because what we're seeing is President Putin precipitating everything he says he wants to prevent. He's alienated the Ukrainian people from Russia. He's actually caused NATO to bolster itself, and will continue to do that, especially if the aggression actually goes forward. And NATO is now closer to Russia than it was. And so in terms of what would appear to us logically to be his interests, everything he's doing runs counter to them. In his own logic, there may be a rationale.
All right, let's get another perspective from a guy who is certainly knows his stuff, but has been wrong in the past and ethically dubious. His name is James Clapper, and now he's a contributor over at CNN, where he was with Pamela Brown, who asked him what she thought about all of this over the weekend.
Do you think this could morph into a large-scale conflict? I mean, what do you think this could actually look like?
Well, it certainly could from just a physical standpoint. One hopes it wouldn't. Here we are in the year 2022, and this is the potentially the largest conflict in Europe since 1945. This is the end of World War II. So hopefully cooler heads will prevail, or hopefully Putin has a much more limited military objective than is evident right now. So I think there's more here to play out. I think there is a chance for diplomacy, but it's kind of down for the count right now, as far as I can tell.
Well, that sounds uplifting. Now let's go to the president of Finland. His name, believe it or not, is Sauli Niinisto. Niinisto. I don't know. It sounds Latin or Hispanic, but it's Finnish. Anyway, here he is on CNN State of the Union with Dana Bash, the president of Finland.
At this point, do you believe that President Putin will invade?
I think there still are three alternatives. First one is that somehow they could settle the issue of Eastern Ukraine, Minsk Agreement and all that. I think it's far away. Then second option is that we will see a full-scale war. And the third one, which is as bad, is that we see this kind of, like I described, 2 steps forward, 1 back, lattice, increasing tensions all the time. And the third one might, at the moment, I would say that might be the nearest one, at least.
And here's one more perspective from my old friend Terrell Starr, who I'm trying to, hopefully I'll talk to tomorrow, but we'll definitely tape a conversation and interview this week. He's in Ukraine. He is a really smart guy who has lived there and reported from there for a long time. Here's 2 minutes from Velshi of Great Conversation.
Right. And I guess that's the issue, Terrell. You pointed out 2014 when the Ukrainians themselves did not like the way their government was going. It was an democratically elected president and government that was pro-Russian, and they didn't like what that government was doing, and they ultimately, at the cost of many lives, forced that government out. Part of the issue that Putin has is, unlike a lot of other Eastern European countries that sort of bolted from Russia's sphere as soon as they could, Ukraine hasn't done that necessarily. It's gone back and forth. It's had two revolutions. Sometimes they're pro-Russian, sometimes they're pro-Western.
Absolutely. So one of the major differences is that Ukraine was much further into the former USSR's orbit than the former Warsaw Pact countries, Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, for example. When you think about the Baltic states, they came in after World War II. And so there is a much larger context. But more importantly, too, this country was annexed in various capacities and colonized in ways that those other countries were not. So it just is not a matter of Ukraine is just lagging behind. They have a vastly different colonial history, cultural history, linguistic history that centers around colonization. And so I will say this, since 2014, you had the vast majority of people who are not pro-NATO. Now, the vast majority of people are, in fact, in favor of joining the NATO alliance. And so Putin's invasion in 2014 did not yield the results that he wants. You walk down the streets of not only just Kiev, but just around this country, you see European Union flags around in ways that you did not see. I know when I first came here in 2009. And so this is a country that will never return back to Russia's, sphere of orbit, no matter how much he tries, no matter how much he bombs it. And finally, I'll close out by saying that if he does invade beyond Donbass and takes over Donbass, I don't see the Kiev government giving up. That's not something that's happened. If they would have conceded a long time ago, if they intended to do so. I just don't see it happening.
All right, that's Terrell Starr reporting from Ukraine, and hopefully I'll get him on this show this week. But the most important, I guess, appearance or opinion here was that of the Ukrainian president, Vladimir Zelensky, who's been the subject of so many headlines for the past couple of years. In an emotional appearance at this security conference in Germany over the weekend, he told leaders of Western nations, including the vice president, Kamala Harris, who was there, that sanctions against Russia should take effect immediately without waiting for an invasion. He said, "We don't need your sanctions after parts of Ukraine are occupied by Russian troops and its economy has collapsed." Zelensky also told them they should reach no agreement with Russia without Ukrainian involvement, according to the New York Times, and expressed gratitude for unity against Russia, but frustration by its limited effects, calling the alliances protecting Europe brittle and obsolete. So, it's crazy. And I think my final point here is, how does this affect you? And number one, we should care about the people of Ukraine, who young people fought the revolution back in, 2015 was it? We talked about that with Andrea Chalupa, who I should reconnect with this week as well. And they deserve their independence and the democracy that they got, as corrupt as it might be. Who are we to point fingers? But more importantly, what's going to happen here? Will there be cyber attacks? What will the price of energy go up because of what's going on there? So a lot of questions about how this can affect us directly. We're going to keep trying to learn about it, understand it, be able to see what's coming, commiserate, talk about it, look for solutions, because it's such an important story for so many reasons. But there are more also stories happening, like over the weekend, 2 helicopters crashed on camera, both of them, at least one of them. There was one fatality, I believe, of a police officer, but that's pretty crazy. That and so many more headlines coming up right now in your news dump. Let's go, Pete Coe.
Bubba was an old baboon, red and hairy rump. Sadly, he's kicked the bucket for today's news dump.
Oh, man, is that a baboon sound effect? Oh, Bubba. 31-year-old baboon at the zoo, Riverbanks Zoo in South Carolina. The beloved Bubba the baboon has passed away. Oh, well, thank you for that update, Pico. And more important, more impactful stories coming your way. I feel like COVID headlines are now relegated to the news dump. I can just read headlines, don't need to go as deeply into them with all the audio and analysis, which I hope is a good sign. But mentioned that the Queen apparently is COVID positive, and so is Justin Bieber in terms of celebrities who have COVID. I usually would never mention that, but I'm just seeing them right in front of me. Australia is welcoming back tourists, which is a huge piece of progressive news, maybe I'll go now. They're giving everybody toy koalas when they come in, too. So that should incentivize folks. The Pope is hailing healthcare workers as heroes of COVID. That's pretty cool. Cool Pope. Oh, I'm just seeing this, too. The Surgeon General has tested positive for coronavirus. I knew that his child had coronavirus, but Vivek Murthy is now tested positive for coronavirus. Africa may have been hit harder by COVID-19 than anyone knew. New analysis says Trump counties are more likely to seek ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine prescriptions, according to a study. No surprise there. The U.S. will surge vaccine support to 11 African countries. Hawaii is the last state with a mask mandate. And while Americans are tired of the pandemic, disease experts are still preaching caution. So we'll keep talking about it and discussing it and hopefully experiencing just the aftermath and after effects. And while there'll never be anything such as normal again, I guess we have to admit, hopefully we'll get back to something more sane and with more certainty. At least that's what I'm hoping for. How are you doing and feeling about COVID and regulations and where we're at? We should really have that discussion. I mentioned earlier the associate of Jeffrey Epstein who was found hung in his jail. Well, authorities have identified a couple found dead in what investigators said was an apparent murder-suicide in Florida as the sister of Wall Street fraudster Bernie Madoff and her husband. Remember Ponzi schemer Bernie Madoff? Well, his sister and her husband were found dead in Florida, and the couple were 87 and 90-year-old. So they were shot. They were found unresponsive with gunshot wounds, and they were 87 and 90 years old. So that's a pretty wacky, weird story. Why is some wacky, wild, terrible stuff? Major League Baseball's locked out talks, and they're resuming in Florida as opening day has threatened Major League Baseball's negotiations to salvage opening day, resume at a new venue in Florida. So I didn't even realize that was happening right now, but that's an interesting sports baseball issue. The season may start late because of negotiations. Millions of Americans will be forced into an involuntarily polar plunge this week. More cold coming to much of the country. In case you didn't hear the weather report, check into it. It's getting old that time of year. A few more ski days, though, coming up. I'm going to head up to Gore Mountain this Thursday with two of my high school buddies. I'm at least planning on it. We'll see. The Daytona 500 was yesterday. A lot of people crashed, and some guy named Austin won. Congratulations to him and his team. I don't know anything more than that. Apparently, Trump's social media network is supposed to take off today, or start today, but I don't think that's going to happen, probably. Or if it happens, it's not going to be very good. You know that thing's going to crash right away, right? All right, well, that is your news dump. That's all the headlines I've got for you here on this Monday, this President's Day. But I've got two great interviews coming your way right now. Coming up, the great Dr. Arthur Caplan, the bioethicist, of course. But first, I caught up with S.E. Cupp, who I talk to about every month. She is, of course, a contributor over at CNN, where she's the host of Unfiltered. She is a columnist at the Daily News. She's an author. She's a commentator. She's a friend. She's sharing all of her mental health issues with everybody. So she's really become, I think, a role model in that way, and a really close confidant of mine. We always have great conversations. People love when she's on the show, and we had another great one I'm very excited to share with you. So follow her on Twitter. Let her know that you heard her here. She'll see your tweet at SE Cupp. Starts right now. And you inspired me to take a photo of my face and share it on Instagram. I was like, I'm handsome, and I wear hats that match my eyes. And so I literally was looking at your Instagram. There's always pictures of your face, and I'm like, I'm handsome. I put this up, and I did, and it felt great.
Did you get lots of positive feedback? Amazing feedback.
Some people used the fire emoji for me.
Oh, that's as good as it gets, my friend. You're a supermodel now.
I've seen other people get it, but I don't recall the fire emoji for me. So it's pretty.
If you don't put it out there, you will not get it back. You got to put it out there.
I will say there were far more gargoyle and goblin emojis and a lot of Skeletors than fires, but I'm not focused on the Skeletor emoji.
Listen, when you put it out there, you're going to get everything back. The good, the bad, the ugly, but you got to put it out there because you're not getting fire emojis if you don't put it out there.
I might go on with a face mask.
Oh,
Why do you do the things on your Instagram? You show the products. Is that helpful to people?
So I got into what you're talking about are like sheet masks for your face, and there's skincare, and there's all different kinds. There's ones that are like hydrating and ones that are, collagen boosting, all the things, brightening. And I got into them when I turned 40. I, for the first time, decided I think I should start taking care of my skin. I'd always had great skin, but I used soap, and that was it for the first 40 years of my life. And so I got into skincare, and I found these sheet masks to be the most relaxing 20 minutes of my day. And it became a mental health moment of Zen unintentionally. And then I got into the different ones and what they did and how they felt. And I just started posting because I thought it looked funny when I had them on. But then people would ask, your skin's amazing. What do you do? What is that mask? Tell me more about it. And now I can't go a couple days, Pete, without someone texting or DMing, what was that mask you were wearing?
Well, that's interesting. I
for under eye stuff. It really became kind of a niche hobby.
That's cool. I mean, if you've mentioned, I just didn't see it, that I never thought it would be for the purposes, at least partially what you're saying about helping you relax. And now I really do seriously want to try it. That's cool.
I'm happy to recommend some good ones for you. I just had my husband do one on the plane. We were on vacation, and planes suck out all the hydration in your face, and we had just been in the sun, so I gave him one and he loved it.
Well, he's got a lot of hair, which I was going to ask you about. So my mask might be I have so much skin showing there. Is there one that you can just put on a hood to cover my skull and then, moisturize the dome a little bit? There's so much to offer. You went on vacation, and I can talk about this with you publicly because you shared it publicly, at least on Instagram. A lot of photos of you and your family. I always love that. At least I like it when you do it. And there is a photo of your husband shirtless, and the chest hair is really something. And I'm wondering how he feels about that post, how you feel about, and if this is too personal, by all means, you can duck it. But that it was a lot of chest hair, and I'm wondering where we fall down on that, because I texted you, and I told you I keep thinking about him, and I'm not sure why.
He's all man.
I knew that.
Listen, we were on the beach. Obviously, he's going to have his shirt off. He doesn't show up to work with that much chest hair showing. That would be weird. But we're on the beach. I'm not going to tell him cover yourself up. First of all, I love his chest hair.
You do.
Love it. Yes. Yes. I love his beard. I love all the things I don't have.
Okay.
Right. I want him to be everything I'm not.
Sure.
That's that,
how heterosexual of you.
Yeah. 100%. Part of me being a woman, I'm attracted to men for all the things that make them men. So I love that about him. But when I posted it, he was a little surprised because there were a lot of comments about his chest hair.
Yeah.
And they weren't all negative. Okay. I mean, some people were really into it.
Yeah, I know he's all man and everything, but I'm just really.
What would you have him do, Pete?
I was confused with which of you I was more attracted to in that picture. That brought up a lot. I definitely was Essie's always been hot, but I think I want to lie my head on his chest for a while and have him read to me. So if that makes me, I don't know what that makes me, but I'm fine with it.
I outkicked my coverage.
Well, the more serious question is, how did you do mentally? How badly did you need that break? And then how did you do? Did it take you a couple days to figure out how you were going to be? Did you find anything? Did you discover anything on your vacation with your son and your husband?
I'm a little disappointed in myself because this vacation had been building up for a year. We booked it a year ago, and I was going with my parents. And I was very nervous that things weren't going to go well, that my parents would be disappointed, or that there'd be, holdups, hangups, barriers, COVID, travel stuff. We were all coming from different places. I was worried my son wasn't going to enjoy it. And all that worry I carried through the whole trip. And I only relaxed when it was done and it had gone off without a hitch. And I was kind of pissed at myself. Because I did enjoy it. We had the best time. It was great. It could not have gone better. But for the 6 days we were there, I was like on the edge. Is this going to be okay? Is something going to go wrong today? And that sucked. That kind of sucked.
Do you think that being so self-aware and doing the work that you're doing and realizing that was what was happening, I'm sure you probably realized it at the time. Maybe you didn't because you look back. Do you think that the next time you'll be able to correct for that?
I don't know. Some of this, Pete, is just who I am.
Right.
And I'm on medication, but it's not medication that like changes me completely. I mean, I'm still me and I still get anxious. And I don't know that I'll ever just be able to like, well, it's fine. It's going to go how it's going to go, man. I'm just going to roll with it. Like, that's never been me. And so I don't know. I think I just need some more tips. And I talked to my therapist next week, and I'm real excited to.
Well, let me ask.
I think I just need some tips on how to like manage the feeling of being out of control while trying proactively to relax. Like, that was the point of the vacation.
Well, that's a different question than what I was going to be about to ask, because that's about relaxation. But is it different in your work life? Because it's kind of, I like that, you and I share all our shit. Because people have an idea of us with whatever you do on the air, certainly about you. I mean, me too, anybody who listens to anybody. And you have always come across as, someone who goes on TV with a tremendous amount of poise and confidence, whether it's hosting your own show on a major cable news network, being on panel on Real Time with Bill Maher, or any other network, much less giving speeches and so on. It surprises me that you feel... and what is your anxiety like with work, and how do you manage it differently there? Because you seem certainly completely in control, really hard to shake or throw off in any way on any of those shows. And I've been around you and seen you a lot. So that's my perception.
I can't explain why, but I've never been nervous or anxious for performing. And that's what you're talking about, the public stuff.
Right.
Performing, I grew up dancing at Boston Ballet, in front of thousands of people. I've never been anxious about panels, the TV, radio, never. I get anxious like walking into my boss's office to ask for something. I get anxious about where my career is going, or whether I'm doing enough with it, whether I'm making an impact. That's the stuff that kind of churns in my head. It's not the performative part at all. I don't know why. It's just, I guess, hardwired. It does not faze me at all.
Well, that's not surprising. I think a lot of people are like that. I think I probably trend towards that as well.
But do you ever get nervous?
Not with,
stuff?
Depends on what I'm doing, but it's never in any remotely close version to the anxiety I feel as you do, and in other situations that are more personal or maybe consequential, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't also think I really deal with too much anxiety outside the kind of main obvious things that you would assume I do: work, money, family, stuff like that. But no, I'm always really curious about the vacation thing and how that goes for people, and how it looks like it's going versus how it might be going in your head. I really appreciate.
And it went better than I thought it would.
Right.
Like, it went great. It could not have gone better. And yet I'm just mad that I was so worried about it the whole time.
Well, hopefully that'll be something you can think, well, you're going to be talking with your therapist, so hopefully that's something that comes up. Okay, so I want to talk with you about a couple of your latest pieces at the Daily News, where you're a columnist, and I really love how much work and research you put into your columns. They're not just drivel of opinion. There's always a lot of research and references and so on. And I guess I could kind of, well, I won't connect these because you have a great CNN commentary as well, which I like. When you do those video commentaries in your home studio. Those are fun. Anyway, Daily News. Here's the title: A Memo to the COVID Complainer Class, Bari Weiss, Bill Maher, and Our Pandemic Inconvenience. I first want to just say I continue to be impressed with you calling out the hands that might feed you. You are a regular on Real Time, and yet you criticized it respectfully and thoughtfully. You are friends with Bari Weiss, and yet you criticized her really pointedly, but respectfully. And a lot of people don't do that. So I want to make sure I point out when those do. And I really like that. But what happened on this episode that you were so fired up about? Because it got me really fired up after reading your article. I went back and watched it.
Well, and thank you as always for reading my work. And I was, I wanted to be careful with that, not because Not because I was worried that Barry or Bill would retaliate. In fact, I'm friends with Bill because he expects me to critique him. And I don't think he'd respect me if I just said everything Bill says is right. So I imagine, we haven't talked about it, but I imagine he saw that and was like, yeah, get it, girl. Like, this is what we do. This is our job. But I couldn't believe what I was watching because I love Bill and respect Barry. And I couldn't imagine how cavalier they were being. And this was kind of in a pandemic height, right? I mean, it's coming down now. We're all very grateful, but this was before Christmas, I think, or just after. And, you know, we were at a high death toll rate. And to see Barry just be like, oh, I'm so over this.
Yeah.
I'm sick of it. Well, listen, we're all effing sick of it. No one likes this. But there's some realities that we have to sort of still live in to figure this out and get to the place you guys want us to be in magically right now, and we're not. And you're like mad at the wrong people. It's the anti-vaxxers and the people that are like, F this thing, man. It's not real. I'm not going down freedom. Those are the people to be mad at. Not the people setting the mask rules or asking you to please get vaccinated. I mean, I was pissed. And I thought it was below the quality of these two thought leaders. I don't think Bill pushed her because I think she said what he agreed with. And I don't think she took the time she would in all of her columns. She's very thoughtful. She was an editor of mine as well when she was at the New York Times. And she was an incredibly tough, in a good way, editor who demanded the best. And I thought, this is not the best. This is not your best. And I know we're on like a fun show and you can give a one-liner, but put some substance.
I love that criticism. I love it. Because when you go on those shows, you and I both know this, and we know who the people are. When you go on those shows, you kind of want to have a one-liner, but you really want to make it seem like it was super organic and you didn't crowbar it in and you didn't bring it there in a backpack and unload it. And a lot of people just drop their one-liners out and you're just like, ugh, I can't believe we saw it coming. You pulled it out of a quill, you hack. So I appreciate that. But I also appreciate in your column, and I've been trying to make this point over and over. When I think about my pain and my perspective on life, I think about my privilege, I think about my luck or whatever it is. But when I think about the perspective on how hard life can be or what my sacrifice is or should be, when it comes to COVID or a national tragedy or disaster, I think about a perspective of history. And you point to this perfectly in your Daily News article when you talk about how she's complaining about how she had to spray her groceries and take her clothes off. And she watched a Tiger King and got to the end of Spotify, which might have been the line she planned. But you write, indeed, the boys of World War II are head nodding in sympathy. Of course, we all did much more than that. We kept our kids home from school. We missed out on weddings and funerals. We got lost jobs and loved ones, you write. Our lives were upended and put on hold. Many of us who survived, got very sick and struggled with long COVID. Such an important point. Sorry for talking so long, but that perspective about other generations of human beings and what they sacrificed and what they suffered is so important.
Just a little acknowledgement during that back and forth from Barry or Bill that people have lost so much.
Yes.
I think would have gone a long way.
Well said.
And then make your joke. And then, you're sick of it. We all are. But I just didn't think it was at their best.
You do a great job at always couching kind of, the truth or a criticism in a compliment or offering that perspective. And I always like that about you. Now, I also want to jump to another story, which I do actually think it's certainly more than a New York story. It's a cultural story. It's about your reaction to Anthony Weiner being rehired to do radio, specifically for a radio station that is owned and operated by a guy who seems really Roger Ailes-y to me, but I don't know. But so Anthony Weiner is back, and I read your piece, and it's important just to be reminded of the things that he did and admitted to. And there is a spectrum of the kind of crimes or mistakes that we make as people, but he did them all, like underage women, and went to jail.
The rage I was on vacation when I learned that Anthony.
Oh, no. What were you doing? Looking at the news.
No, someone sent it to me.
Ow.
Some people sent it to me.
Bastard.
And the rage. Because we all know Anthony Weiner. I covered Anthony. I've had, deal with him. And because I was a New Yorker, remember the TikTok of the story intimately. But when I sat down to write the column, I thought, I bet people forget just how much crap this guy did and kept returning for more fame and second and fifth chances. And so I want to remind people, this is the guy who just got a plum radio assignment. And I also know WABC because a friend of mine from Fox, who was among the women who made allegations against Roger, Bill O'Reilly, and I'll just be vague about it, and settled, was fired from Fox. And it took her years to get another job, because that's what happens to us when we expose these men. People don't want to work with us. So she kind of toiled trying to get another gig. Well, she finally got one at WABC. And like a month later, they hired Bill O'Reilly. And suddenly she had to work with a guy that she had sued. And when we spoke about it, the grief and terror in her voice, I'll never forget it. And I just can't believe we put women in these situations. And so I was thinking of Anthony joining this, august radio network of gross people. Let's not forget, Charlie Kirk also has a show there. So does Rudy Giuliani. It's really like a collection of misfits, and losers. But
I like gross people. The GP network.
It's the GP. WGP. And I just thought, I can't believe it. He is so gross. And his PR spin on this is, this is not a comeback. Don't worry. And I thought, well, what is it? What are you trying to do? You want your fame back again. And it's just, I'm so pissed at it. I'm so pissed at it. Less that there are Anthony Wieners who get all of these chances, more that there are John Katsimatidis's who give them those chances.
Right. No, that's a really important point, because someone is providing the opportunity and the platform.
And the money.
And obviously, the money. Oh, it's so pathetic and so gross. Coming up on the WGP, everybody.
He's a registered sex offender for life.
It's also crazy, that story about the woman who goes unnamed with Bill O'Reilly. But it's also not uncommon when you work in a specific industry to come across former colleagues. In this case, your former colleague who is a monster. And so really sad. All right, before I let you go, I want to ask you about book banning. You have an awesome, a video commentary that you do weekly, right? Unfiltered on CNN.com. Yeah. And by the way, are you doing anything new with CNN Plus or anything? Is there any announcement that I missed?
Oh, we'll see.
Okay. TV. That's really funny. I wish you could have seen her face.
TBD.
She just said, we'll see. Maybe. No, I just feel like some things are being announced and I thought I might have missed it. I'm not asking you to
I've got a couple cool things coming up, and I will absolutely talk to you about them when I can.
Can't wait. So, no, but you did this great video commentary about the book banning thing, which I've interviewed so many people now on the show, historians and experts, but I like yours specifically and anybody else who comes from a conservative argument on this, because basically your argument is this is the least conservative thing you can do. And you make a great argument about how they're cloaking fascism in conservatism. And you also say that the people that are really calling for bans, they're the ones who desperately need to read these books. I love this commentary. I'll share it in the show notes. Everybody should watch it.
Well, it's just absurd to me. Lieutenant Governor of Texas, Dan Patrick, who also used to be a radio host, said that he was going to ban critical race theory at University of Texas. And it was why that kind of stuff, critical race theory, was why he started Liberty University, which is this proposed, project at UT under the guise of more individual liberty, free markets, and limited government. And I can't think of anything less free market, more big government than the government, Dan Patrick, coming in and telling teachers what they can teach and telling students what they can't read. I mean, it blows my mind.
Yeah, what is the similarity? Yeah, what is this? Like, it's like you're putting regulations on ideas. Conservatives hate these types of regulations that create whatever, affect markets. And now they're like taking books out of the library. That the free market of ideas is heavily regulated in this conservatism.
And it's big government. I mean, they want government in everyone's business and telling people what they can and can't read. Obviously, there are obvious ties to fascism. That's what fascism did. But what bothers me is they do it and pretend this is conservatism. And I don't think people like Dan Patrick read, Hayek or Buckley or, name your conservative canon. I don't think, he knows any of that. But shouldn't you instinctively know that, like, this is not conservative, and banning books about sex or a race, like, not a good thing. Those projects historically have portended some real ominous shit. Like, bad things were about to happen when people started banning books. And he's just like, whatever, dude, conservatism.
The thing that has me most upset is the don't say gay stuff in Florida and other states. They're forcing young people back in the closet. And I agree with, who is it? Chasten, is that Buttigieg's husband? Chasten, Buttigieg said teenagers will die. They'll die as a result of this stuff if you don't let them be seen.
I mean, this was essentially, I don't want to say this was a liberal idea, right? But Bill Clinton, don't ask, don't tell, was the sort of, the genesis of this idea. I don't want to know about it. You don't have to say about it. And I think they believed this was actually doing it right at the time. But obviously we know now how deleterious that was for gay rights and equality and pushing people back into the closet, at least in the military. And we know better now. And so there's really no excuse. But conservatives really, I don't want to say conservatives, Republicans really seem hell-bent in bringing back like the worst stuff from history. Like all the stuff that's been rejected as terrible ideas, like Operation Wetback. Trump wanted to bring that back, right? And then like internment camps. Yeah, let's try those again. It's just insane, the stuff they keep going back to now and trying to resurrect.
Yeah, they're not hiding. That's for damn sure. All right. Well, do you want to tell people where you're going?
Like right after this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to the dentist. I'm getting a tooth pulled.
And you're okay with that? Have you done this before?
I had my wisdom tooth taken out in my 20s. It's another one of those, and it just cracked, and so he wants to take it out. And he promises me, he says things have changed and like it's easier and better now. I don't know if that's true.
Wait,
so I'm a little anxious about it.
You said it's another wisdom tooth. I was going to make a joke that it was your front tooth, which would really be. How come nobody ever has to? How come nobody ever has to get a smile tooth removed?
Smile tooth.
Because you have.
My son would call it. What about my smile tooth, Mom?
Oh my God. Impress me, Essie. Get a smile tooth removed and then go on CNN and act like nothing's weird.
What? I just had some dental work.
The whole internet will be like,
Hello?
I think Essie Cupp's, like, I like her. I mean, I don't always agree with her, but I think her tooth fell out. I don't know why didn't Jake say anything?
And it's a smile tooth.
Seems like Essie Cupp is missing a smile tooth and Wolf Blitzer doesn't care? This is weird. Someone should tell her.
Are we just not going to talk about Essie Cupp's smile tooth?
Well, good luck. Thank you for joining me. I love talking to you, and you can tell your husband about my thoughts.
Okay, I will. I got to set you guys up on a mandate.
All right. Looking forward. I can't wait. You can teach me to man up and whatever the things that the men do.
All right.
All right, there you go. S.E. Cupp tweet her right now at SECup. Always fun, always good. Really enjoy our conversations. I hope you like that one as well. Now coming up, I've got bioethicist Arthur Caplan. He's simply the best in the business. We covered a lot of ground when we caught up at the end of last week. Very happy always when he joins me. I learned so much from his perspective. He, of course, is at NYU. He's authored and edited like 30 books. He's awesome on Twitter, Arthur Kaplan. And you got to follow him and let him know that you heard him here. Love these conversations. Everybody loves when he joins us. I'm always excited to talk to him. We covered a lot of ground as always. Here it is right now, Dr. Arthur Caplan. There he is, everybody. The great Dr. Arthur Caplan, or as his friends, I can count myself as one, call him Art. Hi, how are you?
Hey, thanks, Pete. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you. How's the nature outside your window there? You're sitting in front of your beautiful window in Connecticut.
I am. You can't see it the other side of my screen, but it's Darwinian out there, pure Darwinism. And what I mean is all the little critters came out because in Connecticut where I am, it's melting and sort of a spring-like day. So the chipmunks and the squirrels are venturing out. The hawks are ready to eat them. They're killing them before my eyes. It reminds me a little bit of the truck drivers in Canada.
Wait a second. Aren't they eating their own? Well, wait, have you seen action? Have you seen actual
death has occurred before my very eyes.
What did you get?
Snatched one or two squirrels up and carried them away. By the way, you know what else is here? And you're not that far from me. We have bald eagles.
Yeah, I saw a pair of bald eagles chasing a red-tailed hawk a few weeks back, and it was as good as it gets.
Yeah.
That was.
By the way, just for listeners on Deep Background, Darwin did this voyage around the world on a boat called the Beagle. And after he got home, he wrote The Origin of Species. What people forget, though, is he got off the boat. He said, that was the worst experience of my life traveling on that boat. I'm never going back there. And moreover, nature is horrible. So all these people who say, well, I love natural things. I like nature. Nature is the key to healing. It's like, no, it isn't. Everything out there is trying to kill you. What are you talking about?
Yes, it's a really important. There's a ton of poisonous things out there. A ton, from berries to fish to frogs, trees. I mean, but I still prefer not to look at it that way. It's a great argument, and it's completely true. There's so many different ways to die out there, but it's also my safe space, my safe place. So I've got to be out there as much as possible and just hope I don't fall off a cliff.
It's certainly fine to go out and walk and hike and, view. The problem becomes if you eat anything, touch anything. It's like,
I think the real issue these days is, the train is blowing its horn and I have my window open for the first time. The real issue is taking a selfie on the side of a mountain.
Yes, I've seen a few of those go apparently not well, but that's what do we call it? Self-Darwinism. It's eliminating yourself.
Right. The Darwin Awards. All right, let's get into some of the news stories and issues that we wanted to talk about with one of the most respected bioethicists and basically one of my favorite people to talk to in the world. All right, let's first talk about the Olympics. They're happening. You've long had thoughts about the Olympics, and certainly when it comes to performance-enhancing drugs and their role and the rules and ethics around them. So what we have now is just a completely corrupt IOC, which is allowing a Russian skater to skate even though she can't win a medal. She gets no trophy. Meanwhile, that same body of governance didn't allow an American sprinter who smoked weed after her mom died. I mean, people are juxtaposed. Are we missing something? Is that not fair to compare the two?
No, it's absolutely fair. If you're as ancient as I am, you can go all the way back to the Montreal Olympics. There was a sprinter there named Ben Johnson. Something was detected post-race, pulled his medal, banned him for life. Goodbye. See you later. Today, we get this entire team that's banned. Let's be clear. The Russian team conspired at the Sochi Russian Olympics to cheat like hell. They banned the entire team. They're skating under some cuckoo banner, the Russian Olympic Committee or something. And then they're at it again. They're doping a 15-year-old up. I'm not sure she knows what's going on, but the games are a moral farce. I mean, they're just ridiculous. You have cheating all over the place. The whole thing's being held in a complete autocracy that shut down free speech in Hong Kong, is basically torturing Uyghur people in concentration camps. I've said it here before. There's strong evidence that the Chinese are still killing prisoners, killing them to get their organs for transplant. Sounds like a friendly host. I mean, you know, where you want to be, China right now for holding these games. And the other part of this is, how do these places get these games? Well, they bid and buy off the IOC. It's not a secret. It's like the kleptocracy competition. Who can, which stand country can pay the most to get the next Olympics?
Yeah.
If you're going to do this, if we're going to really do it, pick two places that are neutral or friendly in the world. I don't know, Switzerland and Athens, Greece or something, or Norway or somewhere. Make them the summer and the winter headquarters. Stop building giant debt-ridden, waste of resources cities to hold these things in, and get them away from, clear human rights violators. This idea we have to move around every 2 years now for summer and winter Olympics and build valuable sites like a bicycle racing pavilion. I'm sure that's going to help a lot of people once the games are over.
Wow, there goes a whole bunch of listeners who are really into cycling racing.
I mean, I have nothing against it. It's just you look at the architecture that got built for various Olympic games.
No, I mean, there are certain structures and there are certain things you can repurpose and they can become. But yeah, a velodrome is not one of them. That's slanted floor.
Maybe the luge run has limited reuse. I don't know. So
that could be used. That could be used to convince people to talk, I think.
So just build a couple of sites.
Yeah.
Save the money, end the bidding, get the IOC a little less prominent in not regulating what the heck is going on. That's the future. If they can't do that, I mean, I don't know about you. I haven't watched much of this Olympics.
No, nothing at all. I've watched more like on social media, like on Instagram or something, and only because I think that skier is cute. Like, it's like even my purposes for watching are stupid. Like, I don't know. I love skiing and snowboarding, always have. I love winter. I just find this whole, I mean, same way with a lot of the big corporate sports. It's just, the distaste has overcome what I like about them. I mean, I watch the Super Bowl. I watch the Super Bowl. I watch a little of the playoffs, but more than anything else, I feel bad watching them. And not, anybody can do what they want, but that's just
There's a funny Greek term all the way back to Aristotle. It's called akrasia, akrasia. It means weakness of will about doing something that's bad. That's exactly what I feel when I'm watching sports. It's like, I shouldn't be watching it. I like it. I wish I, didn't like it or didn't watch the NFL or something.
I get akrasia when I watch animals mate, but that's me. That's a thing that I don't like. It's just I'm watching videos. Nobody's getting hurt here. I'm not like, it's not like I'm leaving the shed and trying to take.
Hey, by the way, speaking of nobody getting hurt, we hadn't talked about this, but something to keep an eye on for future chit chat. Mark Zuckerberg is all big on the metaverse, right? So what is he talking about? Well, basically, he's talking about what they used to have on Star Trek, the holodeck. Go in there and fantasize and live in a fantasy world. Or Oculus, those sort of video game eyewear that you can immerse yourself in. But here's an ethics issue that came up recently. Somebody was playing one of these online games in Oculus, a woman, and she got attacked by 3 men, her avatar, and raped. Does she have any recourse? Should she complain?
Her avatar was attacked.
Yeah.
So there are, just to be clear, there are other actual people in the walking around. It's a virtual universe. They have the goggles on, but they attacked her in that, and they had sex, like how,
pseudo sex, whatever, know. And so the question comes up: are we going to have rules in the metaverse that say, well, rape is rape? Fantasy rape, bad rape, sex with animals, sex with children, all off the map can't do it there, or do what you want in there, indulge your fantasies. We don't care. It's not real.
Wow, that's a really interesting thing. I have nothing to say about that other than, will it limit my ability to virtually kill certain people? Because I suppose worse than I'm not going to rank violent crime, but other violent crimes other than rape are also horrific and could cause and create tremendous emotional stress for somebody. I mean, it's not.
Right.
There's
well,
not.
I mean, let me give you a practical.
I understand. Maybe there could be a room that you select. You go in to live out your violent fantasy of any sort. But in the quote general room, the public square, I would think there should be similar laws because of the emotional trauma that you can receive from a virtual experience, which I'm sure has got to be true.
Not insignificant. This woman was horrified, the one who complained. By the way, one other side angle. So aside from games and wandering around Zuckerberg's metaverse, what if somebody said, I'll make this up. You're a Catholic priest. You were accused of molesting a child in these big scandals, but you've undergone treatment and you're repentant. So in order to make sure, we're going to put you in the pedophile parole metaverse to see if you get aroused or excited or what you do. Oh, wow. And if you don't, then you can go back to work. But if you do, So I can imagine a lot of uses for this thing that isn't just gaming, but we might want to say, that violate your civil rights, or are you going to sentence people to get beaten up or tortured in some metaverse because, whatever, they didn't do what you wanted? Imagine China doing this with its Uyghurs. You want real re-education? Go live in this universe for 2 years.
Oh, wow. There's so much to think about. I really am at just at the beginning. I probably need a book, an article, or a documentary, and certainly guests to talk about that. I appreciate the fact that you bring up the kind of the ethical issues before we get to some of the, main, probably less harmful purposes. And I just hope they don't send. Before
Mark Zuckerberg charges you $400 a month to experience these ethical dilemmas.
Right.
Yes.
$400 a month to be assaulted. And let's send Pete Dominic into a horse barn to see if he's still getting aroused. I don't know why I'm doing this bit, but it's fun. Okay, so I like bestiality bits. They don't seem to be as harmful, but still edgy. Okay, so let's talk about this other really serious and horrific story, which I can't even believe. And also, I think I'm one of the best at scanning the news. I do a robust news segment every night. Some of it's more comprehensive, some of it's just quick headlines, but I read everything, and I did not see this one you alerted me to. I'll read it at the Guardian. In late August last year, 4 inmates at the Washington County Detention Center in Northwest Arkansas contracted COVID-19. In the days that followed, the 4 men were relocated to a quarantine block in the prison. Okay. In the block, the inmates were given a cocktail of drugs. They soon began to suffer a series of side effects, including vision problems, diarrhea, bloody stools, and stomach cramps. It was only later that they discovered they had been prescribed, without their consent, significantly high doses of ivermectin, an antiparasitic drug commonly used on livestock animals, including cows and horses, speaking of which. Dr. Kaplan, just the laws and regulations around giving any patient, much less, maybe some people have less sympathy for inmates, a drug they did not consent to.
How long have we got to go through the violation? I mean, you can't put people in any medical situation without their knowledge and permission. You can't run an experiment on somebody without their explicit permission. This is an experiment. They were giving them high doses of ivermectin. They didn't know if it worked. Nobody recommended it as a treatment, from legitimate mainstream medicine. They're using prisoners who they can push around and bully around. Normally I don't like analogies to things like the Tuskegee study, where we saw African-American men in the 60s and 70s denied treatment that people knew worked for syphilis because they wanted to study what syphilis did to the human body, and they never informed the men what was going on. This is Tuskegee-like. I can't even believe in whatever it is, 2022, that you and I are talking about an experiment on African-American prisoners forced on them by their jailers without their permission, giving them dangerous doses of stuff. Unbelievable. I can't even believe it hasn't hit the national news in a big way. It's like, what a scandal. There's no defense in my view. Nothing.
Really, really important, and I'm hoping that it does get a lot more attention. What do you think the consequences will be? I mean, I haven't read this full article yet. I mean, are there any similar cases in the past where there were real? Who would do this? Who would conduct? Who would approve of such a thing? It must be a physician.
Oh, somebody's got to be involved there at the medical side. Obviously, maybe the prison superintendent said, "Okay, go grab these guys." The jailers themselves, they all ought to get punished and fired.
And what about prosecuted?
I'm happy to get them prosecuted for violation of civil rights. I'm happy to get them prosecuted for causing harm that was non-consensual in a pseudo-health relationship. I say, throw the book at them. Go get them.
Let me just read this real quick. Last month, the Arkansas chapter of the ACLU filed a lawsuit on behalf of the men against Washington County Jail, the Washington County Sheriff, and the jail physician, Dr. Robert Karras. So there you go. Wow. Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see what happens with that, and we'll certainly follow up on it. I think the most important thing that we need to talk about, which you wrote an opinion piece for the Connecticut Post, people can read it linked to today's show notes. Follow Dr. Caplan on Twitter at Arthur Caplan. The title is, Did I Miss the End of COVID? So apparently you've been mostly hibernating there in your lovely home in Connecticut, but you decided to go out. You needed what did you need? Some Flex Seal, some double-sided tape. You needed some parts.
Shotgun shells. It's Connecticut. Who knows?
Just needed some guns and ammo, a food bucket. You needed to refill your food buckets.
So I went out. I decided we're going to do a little voyage outside of Ridgefield, Connecticut, where I am. One, we're going to get to the grocery store, which I haven't been to myself in a long time. I mean, we're getting groceries, but I haven't been going in to get them. Sometimes I make my wife the victim of that enterprise. I have a nephew who lives with me. Sometimes he does it. I'm higher risk because I'm older, so I've tended, if I don't have to. And then the other was, I think there's a restaurant that's opened up that's got a huge, gigantic space. We don't have to sit near anybody. We can bring in our masks. I've been vaxxed. I got my booster. I'm sure everybody in there is vaxxed. That's Connecticut. We're all nice, compliant folk up here. Long story short, nobody's masked. Nobody's asking for your vax card. Nobody said, have you had a negative test before you come in here? I say at the restaurant, I'd like not to sit next to people closely. They look at me like I said, would it be okay to use the floor as a urinal? I'm like, what? They're rolling their eyes, and I'm like, hey, it's like COVID. There's 2,000 people a day dying. We've had deaths in New York and Connecticut at high numbers. And they're like, where have you been? It's over. I mean, we gave up. I'm watching a lot of this discussion on Twitter and online and other places about, we got to keep masking in the schools and can we keep getting my little sociological survey in highly compliant Connecticut, it's over. I don't know when it happened. I don't know how I missed it, but everybody surrendered.
Do you feel like media? I feel like news media has stopped covering it. And I think that's weird because just a couple of days ago, there were more than 3,000 Americans. It's probably always, the numbers are probably always much higher that died as a result of COVID. So I feel like it's just not a story that's maybe selling. I don't know.
Well, I think the word selling is right there because I think people don't want to hear about more masking, keep going with the testing. By the way, I don't know about you, I'm still waiting for my 2 free tests, my toe-free Joe Biden promised.
I don't know what's up with that. I didn't even realize what I should.
Mine.
I thought we got them.
A lot of people. They don't.
I thought it was a state thing somehow. I thought we got them at our schools or something.
No, they're supposed to mail them to you. You went online, you registered, and they're supposed to. Some people have gotten them. I haven't gotten mine. A lot of people I know haven't gotten theirs. But anyway, that's a kind of a failure. Giving up. I think the story is getting hard to sell. You say Then in the next hour, we'll have 3 reports on COVID, and you can hear people like, where's the Olympics? Can I watch that 15-year-old? Are there any horse shows on? If it's Pete, whoever, it's like, it's like, what? Can we look at something else? We're tired. We're just tired. So that's a tough sell. People know the numbers are starting to go down. I wouldn't deny that. I don't think they're down to throw away your mask and, do whatever you want levels, but they're better. So there's a jump on that kind of story. Improvement, getting better. I think people are also thinking, I don't want to fight anymore. I'm tired of yelling at my neighbor and getting to the school board and everybody melt down, or just having Twitter wars that we call, we're just yelling at each other and calling each other names.
Oh, it's still happening. It happened a few nights ago at our BOE meeting in IRL, as the young kids say. In real life, of course, it's playing out on the community Facebook page, but then at the meeting, it was like the Facebook page kind of came alive.
So I think people are just tired of it. And there are some also out there who've made a different decision, which I think is very sad. I'm not in a high-risk group. My kid isn't under 5. I don't have cancer. I don't have an immune disease. I'm not over 75. I'm not in a high-risk group, and I don't care about you.
Right.
Sad, but morally, I think that's part of what's going on.
Yeah, certainly was the conversation last week on HBO's Real Time between Bill Maher and Barry Weiss. I'm talking to S.E. Cupp later, and she wrote a piece at the Daily News, like bravely criticizing, I will say, because S.E. goes on that show all the time, and she's friends with Barry Weiss. But that conversation that you're talking about, I'm over it. Oh, really? Well, that must be nice.
And also, I really don't have to worry about my neighbor, or I don't have to be mindful of the community and try to protect them anymore because what?
Well, I worried about him long enough. Like, I gave him like almost 2 years of worry, and now I'm fine. So I'm going to take care of myself. Good luck out there.
So one other thing I'm hearing, which is depressing, but something for listeners to think about. So let's say something else comes back, either a nastier strain of COVID, which could happen, not likely, but could, or something else, bird flu. Remember that? It could come back in a nastier form and so on. Some people say, well, let's get ready, let's prepare, let's take all the lessons we learned. The lesson I learned is we have patience for about a year and a half, and then we're done with it. And I don't even know if we have that for the next one. I'm not sure.
Right.
I think people just start to say, no more lockdowns, no more masking. I'll vax if I want to. I'll test when I want to. I'm going to work, and to hell with this. And if we have 2 million dead people, well, that's kind of the Darwinian world we started out talking about.
It's really a very important and, as you said, depressing point, because we don't know what's going to happen next. Well, all right. One last thing I wanted to ask you about, which is, I don't know much about this story, but you just told me about it. This is a story about therapist's notes. Someone's in therapy, and the therapists take notes on their session, and then somehow those notes are legally like subpoenaed. I probably shouldn't have even brought it up, but maybe you can help me set this up. But this is a Harvard University, right?
Right. So there's an accusation by some graduate students that one of their senior professors harassed them, molested them, touched them inappropriately. It's the kind of case we're hearing about with Me Too accusations flying all over the place. In this instance, Harvard acts as the judge and jury, the administrator. They form a committee to see what's going on. Lo and behold, one of the women was seeing a psychotherapist, and all of a sudden, Harvard and the guy they're accusing have the therapist's records.
What?
And it's like, what? So, yeah, I mean, you want to be able to make a defense if you're accused. I'm not saying that, but you should never be turning over notes, never, unless you thought that this woman was going to kill this guy and had some reason to believe there was imminent danger. That's it. We call that the Tarasoff rule. Pete's going to shoot Art in the next 12 hours, then I have to tell Art, and that makes sense. Okay. Turning over your records as a therapist? You can't do that. That's completely a violation of who's going to go to see a therapist and talk about, their horse fantasies or their childhood likes and dislikes, whatever it is. You're not. You're going to say, well, somebody's going to get on the record and I can't have that, so we're not doing that. And let's say the woman gave her permission, which there's no evidence she did. But let's say she did. I would try to talk her out of it. I'd say, you can't turn these records over to the people you're accusing.
Yeah.
We're going to have to do this case without that. You just, you can't do that. Don't give permission. Don't let it happen. So, got a big issue here, very important. What's private in doctor-patient relationships? We're talking about psychological issues, but, let's say I want to see the results of your lung test because you say you were harmed at, 9/11, but I don't believe it, so you got to turn those over, or whatever reason somebody wants to go snooping around in your medical records.
Right.
Bad situation here, in my view. It's not a court. Not anybody subpoena anything. It's an administrative proceeding and records are moving. Bad.
Somebody's in a lot of trouble. And it's not me, by the way, because I wouldn't ever share my weird fantasies with another person. I keep them in my journal, which has actually got a title. It's called Horsing Around, Art. But that's where I keep my stuff. It's just for me.
Why'd you call it Giddy Up?
I did tell you about Volume 1. I did tell you about Volume 1. I forget. That I will never drink with you again, sir. Very, very much appreciate your time, as always. So great to talk with you, and I really appreciate it, and so does everybody listening. Thank you, Arthur Kaplan.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, there he goes, Dr. Arthur Caplan, always the best. Love talking with him and learned so much from him as I did today, as well as S.E. Cupp. Thank you, S.E. Thank you, Arthur Kaplan. Thank you, Pete Coe, John Carroll, and all of you for listening to today's episode of Stand Up. Tell your friends, give it a review, subscribe at standupwithpete.com or patreon.com/Pete Dominic. Go sign up for a paid subscription right now. Welcome to all new subscribers. You can always pay more if you want. Edit your subscription upwards if you'd like, and I look forward to meeting you and talking to you and seeing you at our Thursday night hangouts as well. So if you feel alone, you never have to be alone with the stand-up community. We got the Discord platform going as well. Always people chiming in there 24/7, and you can connect with us, like I said, on Thursdays. I love you guys. You're the best. Don't know what I'd do without you. Thank you so much for your support, and I will talk to you tomorrow. John Carroll, take us out, brother.
I think you're driving wheels been leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. And even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up. up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up and show obedience to the voice inside. And listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up. Stand up. Got to stand up. Ooh, come on, just stand up. Everybody got to stand up in the darkest hour. Stand up, people got the power. Stand up. Come on, come on, come on, come on.